Yep.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
it.
going to
That's all there
jump
is to
in
say.
with another call. Let's jump in with Marissa, who wants to talk about the possibility of a higher power. Marissa, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Really good, thank you. So, what is it specifically you want to talk about?
Well, I've grown up on television. I'm not gonna lie. Give you a little background as far as how I've come to where I'm at right now. I grew up Christian with a Celtic pagan mother. I grew up in the South, so I was surrounded by a lot of Southern Baptists, Jehovah's Witness. And I was even, I was so hardcore into it that I was going door to door asking, have you heard the good news? So very, very hardcore Christian. And whenever it came to death, the loss of a loved one, nothing ever solidly stuck. You know, I couldn't accept the whole it's God's will, that sort of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so I started opening up my mind, and I started talking to my mother about it, and she introduced me to paganism. But even then, whenever it came to death, nothing made sense. There was always some vague excuse as to why things happen the way they happen. Everything happens for a reason. And I can't accept that. And so at this point in my life, I'm bordering on theism and atheism, where like I don't think that there's anything really out there, but if there is, this is the possibility, and that's the topic that I'm trying to get to today.
Okay, so I've got a response to this, but I was never theist. So before I kind of give you my opinion, I'm going to pass you on over to Dan, who's taken that journey himself, and as can speak from experience.
You say this, so you say there's a possibility that theism could be true. And I would agree that if we're just talking about general theism, we're not talking about like Christianity in particular, but theism, I mean, there could maybe be a possibility that it's true, sure. But what do you think the likelihood of that possibility is? If you could put like a number on it, what do you think you are at right now?
I'm one of those people that gives percentages on everything, even though I know absolutely no statistics. So honestly, the possibility of there being something out there, I give it a good 25% possibility, simply because I have to put some sort of reason behind everything. That's just the way my mind works, you know?
Sure. And I agree. I think it's good to put reasons. It's good to have reasons for why you believe the things that you do, right? So the next question that immediately follows this then, that's something that I would ask myself, and what I would recommend you ask yourself, because it sounds like you're already doing this, is what would raise this probability? What would raise this percentage? And what would lower it? So what would be an example of something that would raise this, would make you more confident in the idea that theism is true?
A true spiritual experience, such as anything from as beautiful as a vivid dream with an angel that pops in, like with Joseph telling, or with the angel telling Joseph that Mary's coming to be pregnant and blah, blah, blah. All the way into as bad as something like the idea of stigmata. if I were to experience something like that, I would truly believe that there is a higher deity, a true conscious and active deity somewhere out there.
Okay. I think that's a great example, right? Personally experiencing something inexplicable might raise your personal probability as to theism being true, right? So conversely, I would like to know what would lower that chance for you, if you can think of anything.
Just time, honestly, just the lack of evidence, the lack of proof.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. So at this point, I can't tell you what you should or shouldn't believe, or what you can or can't believe. I mean, I'll give you my opinion, right? And Richard can give you yours. Here's why we lack that belief, right? Here's why, even despite some of which some of the examples you've given of what could make theism true, why we still resound calling ourselves something that's not theism. Could be agnosticism, could be atheist. Different hosts have different opinions for themselves, what they want to call ourselves, but none of us call ourselves theists. And the biggest reason why is because, for the exact examples that you mentioned, the stuff that would likely make theism more true, we haven't experienced for ourselves, right? There's no hosts at the ACA that have had any personal inexplicable experiences that they think makes theism more likely than not. We haven't seen any miracles. We haven't seen God talk to us in our dreams or outside of our dreams, right? It just hasn't happened to us. And when we look at other people that have made those claims, we have some questions, right? There's questionable circumstances for why these things have happened. And ultimately, there hasn't been very definitive evidence or definitive arguments that have made theism more likely than non-likely. So that's where I've ended up today. I used to be someone who was a theist. I used to be someone who was a deeply devout Christian. But after really looking at this evidence and realizing, there's a lot of different faith claims that we could point to. How do we know which one's real? I realize I don't have any reason to believe one faith claim over another faith claim. And so I've kind of renounced all that and have tried to make as little faith claims as possible and see where that gets me. So that's where I'm at. And that's where, what I would suggest to you as well, if you're interested, is say, hey, what are some stuff that we can put all of our money into versus not, and where do we go from there? Because that's really the best you can do for yourself. So anyway, that's my line of questioning, Richard. So there you go. I know you passed it over to me, so passing it back to you.
I think kind of along the same lines. Yeah, I think, am I correct in thinking that you said, Mary said that if we didn't have evidence against something, or we should have evidence against something to not consider that it's true?
Oh, absolutely not.
Right. Okay.
If someone presents an idea, I don't believe at all that we should reject it.
So
there has to be some level of skepticism with everything.
Yeah.
To what level would you put that skepticism, though? If somebody suggested something along the lines of a kind of a statue floating around Venus with a nice miner's helmet on, who could flap the feet and fly through space like people swim in the sea, would you think that is something that should be entertained?
Personally, no. But there are those out there that believe in a giant spaghetti flying monster that came out of a volcano. I mean, and I personally think that's silly, but if that were the case, hey, if you come up with proof, I'll believe in it.
I'm just trying to establish kind of what parameters you're setting on possibility. That's all I'm trying to establish at the moment. And something you said earlier regarding, if someone had a dream, you'd find that kind of compelling as evidence. What would you do if somebody had a dream that was totally convincing to them? the angels visited them, and the angels had come from Yahweh, and were telling them that Jesus was true and Jesus was God, and that Christianity was the true religion. And yet you had somebody else who was telling you that they'd had a dream that said Vishnu had come to them in the dream, and Hinduism was indeed the true religion and all other religions were false. How would you assess which one of those were likely true over the other? What kind of yardstick would you use? Because you've said you'd find that kind of thing compelling. But if two people were having... You didn't say that. Sorry, what was it you said? Because I don't want to misrepresent you. So if you just repeat what it was you did say.
Well, no, honestly, I wasn't trying to contradict what you were saying. That is what led me into believing for a short time, or at least feeling for a short time. I'm very, very touchy about the word belief, because belief is a very, very strong word, and it gets people killed. It gets loved ones hurt, So an idea that I had there for a while was based out of omnism, where it's been the same group of higher beings, just different cultures of humanity had different names for them because of different languages, different ways of thinking, not to mention the influence of the leaders of that time. History is written by the winners of war.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm kind of confused I'm kind of confused about what you're telling me you would find compelling. I'm a bit kind of stuck on, and it may be me. It probably is me, but I'm kind of stuck on what you're telling me that you would find compelling for a belief in something. Is there a definitive thing that you would find compelling?
Honestly, for me personally, it would have to be some sort of physical thing. Like I wouldn't deny that person's belief that this God or this angel or this deity came to them in a dream. I'm not going to deny that didn't happen, because honestly, I don't know. I've never experienced anything like that.
Let's put other people aside then, because I think this is where I might be getting confused. Okay. Let's put other people aside and let's talk about you, what you would find convincing.
Well, like I said, it would have to be some sort of true spiritual and physical act or experience. Excuse me.
There you go. In other words, something empirical.
Yeah. And in the absence of that...
Like stigmata.
Yeah.
In the absence of that, stigmata's a contested thing anyway, so maybe not go there. But in the absence of that physical thing, because you're calling to talk about the possibility of a higher power. So in the absence of that physical, empirical thing that can be tested, do you think that is good enough without that thing to say that, well, we should withhold that there is a higher power?
What do you mean by withhold?
I mean, not accept it to be true.
Oh. Honestly, I don't know, to be honest.
Okay. So this is what I'm trying to dig down at. This is what
Okay.
I'm trying to dig into this idea that you've called in about the possibility of a higher power, and you've said that it's the kind of the empirical thing which would demonstrate to you that a higher power existed. But in the absence of this empirical thing,
my idea of a potential higher power. That's the thing. My idea of a potential higher power would be not. It wouldn't be something conscious the way that most people tend to believe. Like a true comes into human form and is all knowing, all powerful. I would feel more that it is just a consciousness, an ethereal ball of light, if you will, that has no form, that has no conscious way of thinking, and our existence and the possibility of souls, let me rephrase, our purpose on this earth is to give this consciousness the ability to experience life, to experience the physical realm, if this were the case, if this entity were to exist, any type of
that's quite
higher
specific. Marissa, that's quite a specific description for something that you say you don't actually accept is true, and something that you said would you'd be convinced of only if it could be tested empirically. This sounds like something that couldn't be tested empirically. So, it sounds like you kind of, to me,
it's an idea.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're clinging to this idea. You're presenting this idea just for the sake of something to hold on to, is what it's sounding like.
Honestly,
to me.
That is the honest truth. Like, this is my final grasp at accepting the existence of any ethereal being that humanity has concocted.
Yeah. I guess that's up to you to figure out whether that's something that's worth holding on to.
Accepting life, or accepting death.
Yeah. Like for me, like I haven't observed anything that has a mind that isn't physical, right? I've never seen a mind that hasn't been bounded by the physical in some way. So to say that there could be a unphysical mind that exists out there would defy how I understand what minds to be. So that, that's something you might think about with this. If this is an idea that you're interested in deconstructing, but honestly, if this is just an idea you want to hold on to because it makes you feel better about death, or it's just something that gives you some peace, I mean, that's up to you, right? It's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. But for us, at least for Richard and I think we're interested in trying to figure out what's most likely and sticking with that, right? Because at the end of the day, we do have to make decisions. We do have to make hard calls. Certainly there's stuff we can hold up on, like the incompatibilism debate we were having earlier, right? Between like free will and stuff, right? That may be something that we may never know, but also may not have any immediate consequences, right? Like this may be another example of that. It's up to you to figure out whether it's going to have consequence for your life. But there's a nobility in trying to know what's true as well, and being honest with yourself. The fact that you've gone as far as you have, I mean, that speaks to your character. I think that speaks to you saying, no, I want to figure out what's true from the bullshit. And I encourage that. But this sounds like this is another step for you, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. This may be another thing that you have to kind of wrestle with and decide whether it's worth keeping.
My target was to try and get your opinions on the plausibility of it all.
Yeah, I mean, non-physical minds, right? I've never seen evidence of their existence. It seems like everything that has a mind, we can point to something in physical reality. So that would be my contention with it.
Yeah, and that coupled with your kind of the idea wrapped up in that you've got this idea about souls which have a purpose towards that non-physical mind as well, I think adds kind of negative evidence, if you like, to it. It adds weight against the possibility of that thing, because then you're not only talking about one thing, this incorporeal mind, you're also talking about these other things, souls, which are something completely different and deserve a conversation in their own right as to whether they're possible. And these two things interacting with each other, there's a lot of stuff there. But I agree with Dan. You've come a long way already, and keep asking the questions. It's very helpful to have self-dialogue and talk through these things yourself and kind of look at, go down the route of saying, well, I think this might be a possibility, and then I've got this other thing which I think might be a possibility. Let's kind of deconstruct each one of those things and look at the possibility of those existing in their own right together, and kind of dismantling it in that way, I think is the thing I would do if it was me having this conversation with myself. But we'll let you go. Give us a call back. And let's when you've had a think about it, give us a call back, and we'll continue the conversation then. It's certainly an interesting kind of avenue to go down,